Okay, what's up, y'all? This is the last demo of the Vaporwave Series 4 now. And this is how to use the pen tool. You would use the pen tool when you want to do any kind of like freeform shapes or things like that. Sometimes it's a pain to find the correct image when we know that we have artistic capabilities and we can do it by ourselves. So yeah, that's what the pen tool is for. Again, you can use the pen tool to do an entire project and nothing else, which is wonderful. So it's an important one to know how to use. You can use the pen tool to alter your image traced things as well. For this first one, I'm just going to show you an example where you might not want to do an image trace. For instance, if you're trying to make a car. Now, cars, you can get them where they have the all white background or it's vector based, but it might not be either the car that you want or the angle that you want or things like that. So I'm just going to use this Nissan Frontier. Well, it's actually the precursor to the Frontier as an example. So the Nissan precursor to the Frontier looks something like this. We see it has this nice, beautiful background, which is not a thing that I want to incorporate in my artwork, but I want the truck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this image just like we did last time. And I'm going to paste that bad boy into this. It is asking me if it is okay, and the answer is yes. Now notice it is a lot larger than the image. So remember, I'm just going to hold down Shift to retain my dimensions, pull that into the space, and then zoom back in. I am going to hide my CDs and things like that. And I'm just going to pull this over to this side so we can look at it from here. Okay, so now that it is in a layer, I'm actually going to make a new layer to be sure that I don't have anything interacting with this picture. I don't want anything tied to this picture. Separate layer, needs its own shapes. So first things first, I'm going to go to rename this layer. I'm going to rename it truck. Remember, so in Vaporwave, there's not as many cars, but in Outrun, the branch off of Vaporwave, there are a lot of Japanese-based cars. So this would fit that category as well. As mentioned in class, I really like to use the curvature tool over the other pen tool. So small explanation of why. When you use the first pen tool that does not have the little curvy line coming out from it, it is going to allow you to make lines, as you can see, and close in shapes, as you can see. But they are always going to be like hard edges. And when you go to click on the point with that same tool, it immediately gets rid of them, which for some people, that's what they want. For me personally, that's a lot of stress that I don't need. So I don't like to use that one. Instead, I would prefer to use the curvature tool. The curvature tool is going to start off curvy instead of straight. So you can see it's giving us guidelines for how to make this a curvy triangle. But if I don't want it to be curvy, I can just double click the path, and not only does it not get rid of the points, but it changes it to straight. So if you're worried about constantly switching back and forth, the curvature pen tool does a little bit more. Now, if I do want to get rid of one of these points, you can click it and delete it, or you can switch tools and then use that other tool, but I don't know necessarily why you would want to do it that way. Yeah. The other thing that this curve tool allows us to do, if we decide that we need another point on here of reference, of change, it will allow you to make a new point just by clicking any space in between points, and then it automatically creates a new point. So that's why I like the curvature tool a little bit more. Let's talk about how to make this truck. Now, there may be parts of this truck that you're just like, I don't need that level of detail that would possibly be in an the image trace, but you want the general idea of a truck. So that's why you would go in with something like this. Let's say I just want to start with like this front grille piece here and the lights. So what I'm going to do, zoom in as much as I want. And then I'm going to just go right on top of this image with my curvature tool. Now remember, with this curvature tool, I can go back and edit this as soon as I'm done closing the shape. I do have to close the shape every time though. Illustrator likes closed shapes. And then from there, I can change this to either be a straight line or these to be a little bit more straight, or you can just simply put in another point of reference. And then these don't have to be straight anymore. Maybe another point of reference around here. And just kind of getting the general idea. Yes, it does give you a little bit more of a curvy final image, but honestly, that's really okay with me. So as you can see, I'm just going through and straightening up what I'm looking at. Okay, now once I've gotten that there and I feel like, okay, this is around the shape of the front panel that I want, I'm going to drag that away and I'm going to start building my truck in parts. Just like the image trace, I probably want to choose a couple colors. So I think I'll keep it the silver, and then maybe for the body, I'll go into like some reds or things like that. So going back in to build a couple more shapes so you can see what this looks like. It goes pretty quickly, and it does allow you to be selective. Obviously, the more detailed you get, the more difficult it is to do it in a more timely manner. But I don't know. It's definitely worthwhile to know how to do. I'm going to change the color of this one. So remember, I can double click this option to customize the colors, or I can just go up to the selected ones, and I'm just going to make it a more medium gray. So there's that. Using my selection tool again to drag that down into that box there. Copy it because the other one's really close to being the same. So I just copied that there with the Command V and moved it here. Okay. And then maybe I want to do just the little orange lights in there, something real small. Boom, 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 boom. I'm going to make this a more boxy version of this. Ooh, let's change the color first. Cancel. To orange. Wow, it's like almost the exact same orange. How nice is that? Low stress. Okay, so moving this down and just placing that in. And you can see how it's starting to kind of come into being very easily. Yeah, so that's how you would build a truck from scratch. Just picking out the things that you want instead of focusing on all of the other little pieces and using the image trace. So again, okay, so one real quick thing before we leave this area here. Say, for instance, I did a shape or something like this tire back here. And I did it after I did that grill, but I wanted it to be behind that grill area. Like, so we just did the lights, but I want it to be behind all of that. There is a way that you can do that. So let's talk about this. Boom. Currently it's in front. That is not a thing that we want. We want it to be behind that grill area. So as I mentioned, they're kind of like all of your shapes are in a file, and the way that we have placed them is kind of like putting a sheet of paper on top of each other each time. So if I want this tire to be behind everything, what I can do is I can right click and it's going to open up this option here. When I look at the arrange, it's kind of like the way that the shapes are arranged in this folder or this binder. And I want it to be the very last thing in this binder. So I'm going to send it to the back. Once I do that, it pushes it behind everything else. So that is definitely a handy thing to know in this as well. Real quick, going into if you want to change the way that individual things are mapped out, I'm going to bring us back into the isolation layer so you can see how this works in the CD. I'm going to double click on just this path here. and I'm going to click this button, the curvature tool. So once I've isolated the shape that I wanted and I'm on the isolation mode, and then I click the curvature tool, it's going to tell me what kind of curves it made up for this form. So let's say it has this drop shadow, but it has like that hard edge at the bottom, and that's not the thing I want. Remember, when I double click on an angle with the curvature tool, it will change that to be a curve. So it gives me that option here. So if I want, I can smooth this back in, or I can go in and actually delete some of these points so that way it has a little um, bit less of a shadow. Maybe I just want to pull that in to be more of like a bordering space. So kind of changing it to be more along these lines here. Changing that outline. So yeah, that is an option too with the pen tool. Hopefully this is helpful. As always, let me know if you have any questions, and thank you guys so much for watching.